Welcome to the Confident Speaker Journey. My guest today is Olivia Solomons. Welcome.
Thank you so much. So happy to be here.
Excellent. So happy to get started. This is our first episode, so it's pretty exciting for both of us. And Olivia has agreed to get started and launch it. So fantastic. Yes.
We
All
are
right,
off.
Olivia.
I'm excited.
Yes, let's get into it. So, Olivia, you've said in the past that there's a creative fire inside of you that a traditional 9-to-5 job just couldn't contain. When would you say was the first moment that you realized that you were meant for something different?
Oh, I do feel like there were lots of little moments that I didn't necessarily clock when I was younger. But I always had this sort of misfit energy. It wasn't always like rebellious, but it was always just this feeling of like, I just don't quite fit in here, or I just don't quite understand this script that people are doing, this like school and then TAFE or uni and then job and then wait till you retire. Like it just didn't sit well with me. And I had this range, I had this expression, I wanted this internal freedom, to be held by the external environment. So I think as a young girl, I was always, being creative and doing lots of different projects. And just as I got older, I was still searching for that and ended up creating a real kind of project-driven life and varied, diversified kind of life, and somehow always just managed to make it work, make my art come first and then later got into business and what have you. But it was this misfit energy. But I think the good thing about getting older is that you start meeting other people who also, were the odd one out or felt like the rebellious one or felt like the odd one in their family or what have you. So you end up meeting more people like you who are also on this path that's been, potentially less walked, at least when you look around you and you see what a lot of people are doing. So then you feel more encouraged to keep going and to tune into that gift or that calling and just trust and just keep trusting and keep going. So lots of accumulative moments for me.
And what age would you say that kind of started to really drop in for you, where you were feeling more comfortable with your artistic flair?
I would say around, like it was around my Saturn return, if you're aware of that. Yeah. So I definitely, I know you know, but for our audience and stuff as well, but I definitely was pursuing what I wanted to, but with a real lack of confidence and a real sort of apology, because I was trying to fit but still do the normal thing, but do my thing. And I would say it was around my Saturn return where just more confidence dropped in and I'd met more people and I just started to find this confidence of that self-permission and just, I don't need to explain myself. I can just go and do it. I can just be accountable for my life, responsible for my choices, and just decide to do it. And when I did start doing that, I mean, A, it felt better for me, but B, anyone else around me, whoever sort of questioned it or undermined it, stopped questioning and stopped undermining it. They were just like, oh yeah, that's Liv. That's just what she does. She's a creative person. Yeah, she acts, but she runs this business. And that's just who she is. And that really started to drop in around, 27, 28, 29. Yeah.
Yeah, nice. And that would have been so comforting for you to have other people join you and reflect back to you that that's my normal too.
Yeah, absolutely. And what happened around that time too is I did a stint in Los Angeles. Like I went to America for 6 months and I really wanted to invest in top training for acting. And we have so many great places like that in Australia too, but I was really drawn to this particular studio. And that was also really pivotal for me because I was just going to classes with, I was in rooms with people, in rooms with well-known people, and they were just coming and doing the work. And that was a normal day for them. They would come in, they would work on their acting, they would put a scene up, put a monologue up. It was very much like business. And then, they would go home or they'd go back to set the next day. And so it was that trip as well made me realize that this is normal in some environments. And I could, just treat it as like, this is my craft. This is my career. This is my path. It was very, very validating and very helpful in the next decade and even now. Yeah.
Was public speaking difficult for you, or was it more original initially?
It was when I became, to be honest, public speaking for me has only been difficult when I became really self-aware. Let me try and break that down, because when I was in primary school, for example, I did lots of speaking, and in high school as well, I did lots of, I did debating, and I was vice captain, but I would write my school captain speeches for her. Like, I loved being part of the creative process, and if I had a chance to speak, I would. But what I would say was there were times in my life where if I felt, if I wasn't embodied, and I'm thinking at the moment, I'm thinking at specific times that I was maybe bullied at school, that's when I would really lack this confidence because I cared so much about what other people thought instead of just having my own backbone. But certainly when I entered the workplace as well, that came up for me. I felt nervous, to speak in front of my colleagues and people. So that actually became a practice, and it became a real practice for me when a manager said to me, hey, do you want to become a facilitator and run these workshops for all of these different places, departments in Telstra, big company, right? And that brought up so much fear. Like, I almost said no on the spot. And she actually had the foresight to say, go home, think about it. We'll connect in tomorrow and we can just unpack it bit by bit. So in terms of professionally presenting and facilitating and what have you, that definitely brought on the nerves. And that's when I really, really needed to look at that and work with my nerves and see what from my acting life could be transferred into this, part of my professional world as well.
Perfect. Love that. So let's talk about moving from acting to entrepreneurship.
Yes.
25 years of acting is huge.
Yeah.
What did acting teach you about speaking, about being visible, about stepping into different versions of yourself, characters? What did acting teach you about speaking and visibility?
Acting taught me that visibility and confidence, they're not personality traits. They are simply a practice. And, you can find a lot of actors who don't want to do public speaking. You can find a lot of actors who don't want to stand around in a foyer after the show because they feel so, insular or self-conscious, or they don't want to be the center of attention. So yeah, I just say that because sometimes people think, oh, you're an actor, it's easy. And it's like, actually, when you're on stage, you're playing a different character. You're tapping into different parts and you're really channeling it for that period of time. But when you step on a stage or in a room or a boardroom or, a training situation, you're not necessarily drawing from the same parts of yourself to be able to show up in that capacity and play that role, so to speak. So it was really practice. And I think with speaking as well, realizing, and this was probably one of the biggest things I had to work on, was that speaking I'm not performing an act. There is a performance aspect of it, and that it's heightened. We're turning up our resonance, we're engaged, we're on, but it's got to be embodied. And so if you're doing the performance part without being embodied, without being really connected to your truth and your voice, and if you haven't personalized what it is you're speaking, that's going to be lost on people, and it's going to feel inauthentic, and it's not going to, you know, light up the room or light up yourself. So it does have to be embodied. And yeah, I think one thing though that acting did teach me, which, for speaking, but also just as someone who grew up in Australia, where we have, tall poppy syndrome and we love the underdog and things like this, it did teach me to take up space. It did teach me that it is my birthright to be here as Olivia, as a woman, as an expressive actor and entrepreneur, and I actually have the right to be here and to take up that space. It's something that I think Americans do really well. I think sometimes people judge them for that, but actually I find that that's a good lesson to be, well, how can I take up this space? Because when people come to see you talk or they come to your training, they don't want to feel nervous for you. They've paid money. They want to feel like you're taking care of them. So it's really important that you own the room and take up that space, and that you are the host on that day. And it's like you're welcoming them into your dinner party or, your home, and making them feel like they're very, very welcome to be there. And all the while you're still holding the space, regulating your nervous system, making sure your points land, connecting, engaging, and maintaining that presence and connection to self. So, look, acting really taught me a lot around embodiment, around being connected to my truth, being present, and just not going into that over performance, which can happen when nerves really amp up. So it's been a real, I think, thermometer for me to know when I'm with myself and when I'm sort of stepping outside of myself, if that makes sense.
Makes perfect sense. And that's a powerful message for anyone really who's considering speaking. Reflecting back to what you were saying about watching actors, you can tell when they're embodying the lines, the character.
Yes.
You can feel it. You can, visually I can see it. I can feel it. You can definitely tell the difference when an actor is embodying and when they're not.
Yeah. And when they feel comfortable in that space because they've endowed the space, they've done their work, like that stage is their stage. And an audience won't always logically be able to work it out. But if they can walk in and sit down in their chair, whether it's a one-woman show or an ensemble show, but if they can be breathing and they're relaxed, that's a good sign that that performer or speaker is doing a great job. Because, if the speaker or performer contracts their breath, the audience will actually mirror that. And so they might feel a bit tense, and it will be, there'll be this sort of thing that happens where people will feel nervous for that person on stage. So, it happens all very subtly and subconsciously, but it's those things that will make a performance or a speaker stand out, because you've been able to totally relax and be submerged in that world for that period of time. So things like that really make it memorable, and captivating.
That's a really good message as well for people who are budding and developing speakers, to recognize that the audience can be your mirror. And if they are at ease and breathing, well, they're sitting back and they're enjoying it.
Yeah.
So that's a great indicator. And when you were speaking about that, something came up for me. As a young girl in New Zealand growing up at our schools, we had travelling theatres that would come. Did you ever have that?
Yes. Yeah.
It's an English thing, right? That was passed into the colonies.
Yes.
And I was mesmerized by these people that would have very little props, but their energy and personas and embodying the character was just, they would suck you in and take you on a journey.
100%. And look, speakers do that too, right? When they go on a tour, I've done tours as an actor around Australia a couple of times, and every time you change theatre, you're dealing with a different stage different lighting, different audience setup. So that's also a muscle. And I think when you enter the sort of speaking arena, and when, for those people who do decide to, really take it seriously and they want to, have that as part of their career or make it their career, the professionalism, it's like, you're not just thinking about what you're talking about, what you're sharing and your slides or what have you. You're coming into a space and you're understanding the technical components. You're understanding the audience. So where you might have to project and where there might be like a spot where sound goes dead, or am I going to be mic'd up? And if I am going to be mic'd up, do I like this or do I like holding something? And these are all part of these creative choices that actually can either fuel your confidence and make you feel really held and own the space, or can really like plummet your confidence, because if you don't take control of those things, and add that to your repertoire, to your professional tool belt, that can impact you as well. So these are just little bit by little bit, we learn extra tools along the way around our authenticity, around dealing with nerves, but also around dealing with the technical stuff and the space and the audience. And it's all practice, and permission to have fun while we're learning this.
Yeah, 100%. And that just leads into my next question, which is about working with nerves.
Yes.
And got to take care of that technical side, because for a lot of us, that's really scary.
100%.
It's out of our normal,
Yeah.
Yeah. And if that's not sorted and you're not comfortable, well, that's going to put you on edge and have an effect on your nervous system, like you said.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
so I was going to,
yeah,
go.
Sometimes we've conversations that we've had, this thing about giving yourself permission to take up space and shine and use your voice. But it's also in the little micro decisions. It's giving yourself permission to go and talk to the lighting guy. It's giving yourself permission to ask the venue facilitator, hey, can I go and have 5 minutes on that stage, the day before, or whatever it is that you need for your preparation. And they won't always say yes, but you are allowed to ask for what you need, and asking for what you need, that process in itself is empowering and confidence building, I find.
Yeah, so true. I actually just went through this yesterday. I'm speaking for International Women's Day and had these same conversations with the organisers about what sort of microphone, what's the stage like, can I go to have a look at the stage? It's all important for my own nervous system to be sorted when I arrive there.
Yeah. And it's really like you're self-advocating. That's what you're doing. What I realize with nerves is, for me, the biggest thing, the biggest lesson that I could take away with nerves is that you don't actually want to get rid of them, because nerves are feedback. Nerves are just data. And, especially if you're feeling anxious, like that's just saying you care about this. You care about this job that you're about to do. So for me, it's been around changing my relationship and language to myself, to my inner critic, and to that nervousness when it comes up. And it's all about working with your nerves, because otherwise there's this like self-abandonment thing that happens where you're sort of trying to cut out this like disease, or this, you're treating it like it's a cancerous part of you. And it's like, so the message, the internal message you're telling yourself becomes quite negative and distracting. So you want to actually just bring that home and go, oh, I'm feeling nervous. Oh, like actually reclaim that part instead of standing in separation of that part, and being really gentle, having so much grace, so that you're not overriding yourself and you're not performing on top of this disconnect. So there's lots of tools and practices for that, which I know that you teach, your students. But yeah, that's the biggest thing for me. It's like bring it home, learning to work with them, not against them. And within that, it's like this self-reclamation instead of this self-abandonment that can happen, because we feel like it's bad to have them. And it's like, actually, it's so normal. Like most of the time when you feel nerves in this situation anyway, it's saying that you're right on track.
Yeah, love that. And I love how you articulate all of that. So good.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about the role that changed everything for you.
Mm.
Was there a role or a moment or an audition that taught you a defining lesson about confidence or presence?
Mm. Yeah, I was actually thinking about this in the lead up, and I wish I could say it was when I was on the stage doing this, or it was when I auditioned for that role. And actually, like the two big moments that came to mind happened when I was in, both of them happened when I was in Los Angeles, when I was in these studio situations and for my training, and the stand was so high and I worked so hard, like I prepared so hard because of course I had my nerves and my I'm not good enough, I don't deserve to be here. I had all of that running through, that I was working with and learning to work with myself in that. But yeah, there were two situations, and the thing that the one was a scene, one was a monologue. I'll start with the monologue. I think the thing that really, like the lesson that it taught me with that situation was how vital your preparation is in being able to be present in certain situations. Because there are some situations in life you'll just be able to regulate, take a breath, and be in your sack of skin and your brain, and you'll just be able to be there. There's so many things that can take us out of that world and out of our goal and what we want to achieve. And there's so much attachment to it wanting to go good and be memorable and impressing this person and all of these things that our mind will play tricks on us. So in that situation, or both of those, it was more like when you really prepare the technical, the human, the script, the props, like all of those things, and there's nothing more that you can do. It's like then you can just hand it over. You can hand it over to the speaking gods. You can hand it over to the theatre gods because you've done what you can do in the time that you were given. Sometimes, with auditions, I get 1 day turnaround. Some days, when I was in Los Angeles, I'd have a week to prepare a scene, So it's around preparation that gives me the freedom to play, explore, have fun, but it's also what allowed me to be so present, because when I got to that day where I needed to put my scene up on stage in front of all these people that I was scared of, I was able to go, I've done what I can do. And now it's time to let go all of it and just be here. But I don't think I can give myself that permission if I know I haven't done the preparation. And yeah, and even with the preparation, that doesn't mean like all the nerves go or the anxiousness goes. But again, it's like presencing that part of myself and just saying that part is included, that part is welcomed here. This part gets to be channeled into this performance, into the humanity of what I'm about to speak to, or in the humanity of this character that I'm about to play. So it's massive self-love, self-acceptance that happens in those moments, which is, its own body of deep inner work and shadow work. But yeah, don't underestimate the power of your preparation to be able to be freed up. And, if you're running a narrative of I'm not enough, it's like when you really show up for yourself, you can meet yourself and go, well, actually, I am enough. And I've done the work. I haven't let myself down. I actually know that I've done the work and I deserve to be here on this stage right now. So you get to meet yourself in a new way as well when you really show up.
Yeah, beautiful. I love that. And so when you know it inside out and you can relax, then like you say, you can channel that energy of the character and all the information is within you, right? So
Yeah.
you have got to the point of embodying the character.
Yeah. And then you just get to play. You get to, like times I've been on stage and something's gone wrong, you know, like a prop fell over and a glass broke on stage. I had that happen when I played Gwendolyn in the show The Importance of Being Earnest. But because it was so embodied and we'd done our rehearsals and we had that trust within ourselves and with the other actors, when I turned my gown and smashed the glass on stage, which wasn't meant to happen, we were able to improvise and integrate that. So something that looked like a mistake became just an enjoyable, memorable part of the show. And the audience, you know, appreciated how we could make that part of the show as well. Like this is what keeps spaces live as well. You know, thinking when you forget a line or you go off script, we could go into our head, and that can happen. But when we can just accept it moment to moment and just be like, well, I'm in a live space, let's like go with it. When you can give yourself permission and that sort of trust to go with it, it can also breathe something really beautiful into your talk or your performance. Yeah.
Let's talk about transition phase. What was the hardest part about transitioning from acting into entrepreneurship? Like, where was the doubt, you know, was there doubt that came with that shift or?
Yeah. Yeah, there was heaps. There were a couple of big doubts. Interestingly, one of the things that I was really scared about was that, you know, in life we have certain narratives and belief systems that, you know, will unconsciously run our behavior until we make it conscious, right? And then we can be more intentional with our choices. But one thing that I was really scared or limited by was that because I'd been an actor and I'd been a performer, and I was worried for so long that if I started doing this business stuff, that casting directors and other actors would think that I didn't care about the arts or that I was no longer an actor, that they would start to just identify me as an entrepreneur. And interestingly, the reason why I got into entrepreneurship was because I wanted to create a life that could support my artistic endeavors. You know, like that was actually my why to getting into business, because I tried every other business model under the sun and I was able to make a lot of it work. But at the end of the day, it could still show up as like being real time poor or not having a lot of money because the savings would be reinvested into a trip to LA or to a workshop or what have you. So and neither of those work well for your nervous system. And as an actor, you need to really be regulated in your nervous system because you're constantly going in and out of your emotional life and, you know, needing access to these. Sometimes you're working with your own personal experiences. So you need to be, you need to have a certain capacity to be able to dip in and out of that. So, yeah, I was really, I had a lot of grief around, I think, the identity that was transitioning. And I was worried about, what other people thought for a really long time. But that in itself actually became the gift, you know, because it made me look at, well, why do I care so much about what other people think? And actually, that had really been running the show for me as an actor my entire life. And it was coming into entrepreneurial spaces that I started to learn more tools and get in rooms with people who were living their life by their heart and their passion and their purpose. And I was doing that with acting, but I still outsourced a lot of that validation. And this transition helped me to really grow like really strong roots and a really strong backbone, and allowed me just to be like, well, so what if people see me like that? And I know now as well, most people aren't thinking about you. Most people are thinking about themselves and their own life and getting dinner on the table for their kids or, you know, planning this or, you know, doing something in their own job or business. But that was the voice of a very insecure, person who was, disconnected from her own self-trust. So I was scared about that, how it looked, and I was also just scared of failing. Like, I don't know how many people get to skip that part. I don't know if everyone goes through that, but I was like, I'm taking a leap here. I'm going into this world of promoting my services, my offerings. There's so much imposter syndrome that comes up with that when you put yourself out there, in your self-promoting, especially in Australia, I feel. I think we're a lot better at it now. And I'm at a point now where I'm like, I don't care. This is my business and I know who I'm serving and I'm so embodied in the people that I get to help. And it's an honor and a privilege. And for me, putting myself out there most of the time now is actually fun because I make it fun and I create, I co-create with other people, with my nervous system. I don't self-abandon. So there are ways that I can, now show up, which really from the inside out feel good for me. But I was definitely scared of failing. And I don't think that has totally gone away. I think that fear still comes up for me. When I'm having slow months or if I haven't been on stage for a while, that can definitely creep in. So presencing myself and remembering the things that I have achieved, because sometimes we're so good at focusing on what we haven't done, yet, as opposed to all of the things that are working and have been accomplished. So they would be the main ones. Yeah, they would be the main ones. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I really don't think you're alone, and thank you for sharing that vulnerability of it still being there, that critic, that imposter syndrome, because I have had one of my coaches who's been in the public speaking business for many years turn around last year and say that he still has imposter syndrome and he gets earns $45,000 a keynote.
Yeah.
And he says he's been doing it a long time, so it's a program that's there. But like you say, you learn how to manage it.
Yeah,
you learn.
You do, and you're still a human. So there are still times where even after learning it, you need to relearn or you need to get back into that rehearsal room because, if things get a bit rusty or if you're having a week where the inner critic is loud, you can get knocked off. You can knock yourself off your own sort of path and confidence. I know actors who. There's this famous story of the actress Glenn Close. I can't remember what film it was, but a director wanted her for this film and she was so petrified. She was so had her own imposter syndrome. He had to fly over to London to get her on the plane to come to LA to do the film. And this is she already had a whole heap of films under her belt, So even people at the top of their game are human and are dealing with their own inner world, which needs nourishment and needs regulation. And potentially when you're getting paid $45,000 a keynote and there's more responsibility and you're growing that capacity, potentially the need to the nourishment and the self-regulation probably needs to be increased even more, because the world is expanding. So in order to hold that and feel supported and maintain that self-trust, there's probably, I'm not where your coach is, but I imagine there'd be certain rituals or routines that need to happen in order to be able to perform at that level. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Good point. All right. Let's go back to 2022, to the low point. You mentioned that there was a low point in your life that reshaped you. And what did that season teach you about your voice, your identity, or your resilience?
Yeah, so 2022 we're a couple of years into COVID. My partner and I unfortunately went through a miscarriage, and then within a few days we were hit by the New South Wales 2022 floods that happened in a few places, but we were right in the middle of it. So there were a lot of things, traumatic events that happened back to back. And for myself and my partner, I can honestly say, like, any mask that we had was just stripped away because we were so exhausted. We were also unwell because of the flood and because of the toxins and the mold, but also the depression, the anxiousness around the future. So we were really operating at a pretty low point. And I think what I realized about like my voice or my identity at that time, and I didn't understand this when I was in it, but coming out of it and getting things back in order and getting things back on track required a whole lot more softness than what I'd ever allowed myself, because I am pretty good at being in the do, being in the masculine part of myself, getting stuff done, being productive. But actually, I found a lot more resilience through being soft and having more grace for myself. And I think there was a real unraveling of, it wasn't just identity, it was also belonging, because so many things had happened. And I think, I'll talk for myself, I think at that time I felt like, where do I belong? Like, am I meant to be here? Do we go back to Melbourne? Lots of questions about the future. And so it was more around refining my voice and refining who I be, as opposed to like being lost. I didn't lose my voice, I didn't lose myself, but it was like everything had been swept away and there was this blank canvas. So from this blank canvas, it was this now journey of what parts do I need to reclaim? What parts do I need to build up or change in order to create this future that I wasn't so sure about anymore? And so big things happened during that time. But I do believe that the softness is actually what gave me more resilience than ever, and activating the softer part of myself, being able to receive help, knowing that receiving help wasn't me failing or a flaw, and really listening inward and those internal cues and letting things unravel, even the stickiness, and being able to almost watch myself and be an observer of myself and see how I was able to hold space for me and for others during that time because I softened. And at that time I just was looking ahead and going, okay, well, what does the future look like? And that's when I started to make different choices around the kind of work model, the business that I pivoted into. I started to take health and wellness way more seriously. And I really reconnected with my artist at that time too, because during COVID, there were a lot of restrictions and mandates. I wasn't able to work for a period of time. And I didn't realize until I had that blank canvas again of like, oh, that's really missing. And there's a lot of grief there. And I really need to feed myself with my own artist and acting again, because that is part of who I be in this world. So, yeah, the unraveling of that time was so difficult. And also just pivoted and changed the direction of my life. So there's no regrets. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
You just answered my next question, which was asking about that moment where you refused to live small anymore and you were choosing the bigger story, and you just explained that beautifully.
It's interesting, isn't it, how life, because there will be ups and downs in life, and you don't know when or how that's going to reveal itself. Like, we couldn't have known that we were about to be stuck in the middle of a flood, right? But yeah, it's knowing that there will be ups and downs and that you will respond and you will be okay, and accepting help and support is maybe the very thing you needed to be able to like make bolder choices and up level and have the courage to change your life. Yeah.
So after all that leveling and changes, and the challenges that came with it, do you feel your voice feels different now when you're out there sending your message?
Yeah, for sure. Like, I have so much, the self-trust that I've built in the last few years, and sometimes that wavers. It's not like it's a constant, but the self-trust I have, I've never had it like this in any other decade of my life. So maybe it's a thing with age, maybe it's because of, trauma and life lessons and the ups and downs, but it's this self-permission that I constantly give myself. There's more of an observer in me, so when there's a story or a limiting belief, not always, but a lot of the time I can become aware of it sooner rather than later. Or I have a lot of amazing people in my life like yourself who might mirror to me when I'm playing a bit small, or maybe going down, the rabbit hole of a narrative that might look convenient but isn't actually going to be serving in the long run. So I've got people in my life as well that will hold me to account, and that's actually been huge. Like, having good people in your life who support you and witness you and actually call you forward in your purpose, that is so important, and that's something that has come more and more in the last years of my life. But yeah, this permission over prescription, and understanding that the nervous system sets the tone. So you deserve to take yourself seriously. You deserve to take your art, your speaking, your job, your business seriously. You deserve to take up space, and to be able to potentially give yourself that permission, and not just permission to be there and do it, but to actually enjoy it, to actually have fun, to actually do it the way that you want to do it. You need to nourish from the inside. You need to regulate, and we build capacity over time, and we can do that consciously and intentionally, but really stepping into that will serve you in your life, in your relationships and your jobs and difficult situations and building a business and, speaking on a stage. So, I don't think, confidence for me and the way I show up and the way I have my own back now, it's not about like being loud and bold and audacious. I mean, those things can absolutely describe the way my expression manifests in the world. But for me, it's just about being at home within myself. And that's what's happened. That's what's happened for me. Like, I'm more at home and more at peace with how I be and who I be in this world. So, it's definitely changed my tone. It's definitely changed my voice and my expression. And, and the other thing I do is, like, now if I'm feeling nervous or unsure about something, I'll take that moment to presence that, to understand what my nervous system, what I am reacting to. And when I can sort of presence that and honor the little girl within, and, whatever is moving through my body, it's, also then about really, honoring this, forgiving any part of myself that thinks it's going to fuck up or make a mistake or whatever, and just being the first person to validate myself. I don't wait for anyone else. Even with my content, sometimes I'm the first person to like my own content, and it's not because I necessarily think it's the best on the internet, but I will validate myself. That's a way that I show up for myself, So it's like I will give that to myself. In certain groups, I call it turn yourself on, like sometimes we're about to leave the house and you're like, do I look good in this dress? Is it okay? But it's like, hang on a sec. How about you ask yourself that first? Do I look okay? Do I look how I dress? Do I think I'm sexy or whatever it is? And so I give that piece of validation first, which 5 years ago, I would never have done. I would have cringed at, I would have judged a person for doing that. And now that's just part of the playfulness. And it's like, if I approve of myself, if I approve of how I'm showing up and what I'm saying in the service that I'm offering, then right now that's the most important, opinion, like you do need to care firstly what you're doing. You need to create for you, I believe, before you create for your audience. That's a bit of my journey. Yeah.
Brilliant. I love that. And, once again, you've answered my next question. So
telepathical.
Oh, yeah, it's so good. And so it's happened so often in this episode that I want to just say and ask, actually, that in those moments where you are connected to your authenticity, you're allowing your flow, you're validating yourself first, you're honoring yourself, that connection to your inner being is well and truly there. And so do you find that your intuition's dropping in more than normal when you're sitting in these places? Because it's like you're actually reading my questions and knowing that it's this this is the question and here's the answer, and I haven't asked it,
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering, have you noticed that whenever you're in those spaces that you have downloads and drop-ins from your intuition?
Yeah, absolutely. I think when you're in a state of flow, and when you're so present, you are opening yourself up to more things than what you might read in a book or on paper, And I think we've had this experience too when we've had conversations in person, and it does feel like we're reading each other's mind, or we almost answer things, or it's a similar response because the resonance is already at play. So the energy is there, the download, the drop-in is there before the verbal spills out. So absolutely. And I've definitely found that on stage too, in not all performances, but some performances where I've been really present and just, it's almost like something's coming through me, and I can get off stage and I'll be like, where are we at in the script? Because I was so present and not here that I've almost just had to double check, did that scene happen? And I wasn't disconnected. It was just that it was so in the moment that I wasn't looking ahead or looking back, which is often what happens, right, when we're living in our head. So yeah, I do notice that. I do notice whether that's when I'm just present and or in that creative flow or feminine flow, that happens a lot. And that's, a practice, I have my spiritual practices or, whatever, meditation, whatever, we all have different words to relate to it. But, channeling and being connected and, being connected to something higher and greater has definitely played a role in the path that I follow and the self-trust. And I think that has helped me trust as well the downloads and that intuition that I do get. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, that's really important, because the Confident Speaker Mastery program is about, in that process, I help people to tune into their intuition, their higher self, and receive the information about their vision and where they're moving forward to, but also what their next steps are. Because it's not coming from me, it must come from the client, the student that's stepping into this pathway. So you've just beautifully illustrated that from your journey, your speaking journey as an actress and an entrepreneur. And I just want to thank you for joining me here today. That was absolutely brilliant, and lots of gold nuggets in there.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it.
I love talking with you, and online and in this offline online, I've so appreciate your intuition and the transformation that you bring out in people, like help to guide people with. So Thank you for the work that you do and for just being an amazing, amazing human being.
Oh, thank you. Ditto, back at you. But before we go, I've got one more question. And that was, if you were to be an animal of choice that fully expresses who you are, what animal would that be?
Yeah, so the animal that's dropping in is like is it a lynx? You know, it looks like a tiger, but they're often usually like all black.
Mm-hmm.
Like a really fluid but fast, but agile but playful cat-like creature. Yeah,
Nice.
that's what's dropping in today. Yeah,
Yay.
yeah, yeah.
Yay. Thank you for playing.
Yay, my pleasure. That was fun.
Yeah, really appreciate it. Well, thanks to the listeners for sticking in and being here and listening to this brilliant woman and her journey. And that's it for now. Let's sign out.
Beautiful. Thanks so much.
Bye for now.
Bye for now.